The morning air was still, heavy with the kind of silence that made Sundar feel something wasn't right. He sat by the window in his California home, sipping his usual cup of plain chai, his thoughts wandering. He was supposed to be on a call in 20 minutes, but something tugged at his mind like a thread waiting to be pulled. He looked at the email again, one he had almost ignored among the hundreds flooding his inbox. The subject line simply read, "Please help me. I just got fired for being disabled." His finger hovered over the delete key. This wasn't the first time someone had reached out to him for help, and sadly, it wouldn't be the last. But there was something different about this one. The sender's name was Liam Ortiz. Sundar didn't recognize it. But the message, it was raw, humble, and carried a quiet pain that couldn't be faked. The tone wasn't angry. It wasn't begging. It was honest. Dear Pichai, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I worked at a company your foundation supported last year. I was fired yesterday. They said I was too slow. I have one arm. I've never complained, never missed a day. I'm not asking for my job back. I just thought you should know what they did. Sincerely, Liam Ortiz put his cup down and stared at the screen. A strange coldness crawled down his spine. It wasn't just the unfairness of it. It was how Liam had written it, like he wasn't surprised. Like he had already accepted that the world wasn't built for someone. Like him, he clicked on Liam's name and started digging. The company Liam mentioned, Next Step Robotics, was a mid-level AI-driven tech firm based in Arizona. It wasn't owned by Google, but it had been part of an incubator program Sundar personally backed 3 years ago. They had shown promise in designing wearable tech for rehabilitation. One of their flagship designs was even used in several veteran clinics. Sundar remembered visiting their pitch meeting. The CEO, Derek Slate, was young, sharp, and overly confident. He had worn a $3,000 suit, tossed around buzzwords like disrupt, and kept calling himself a visionary. Sundar had shaken his hand and supported his company because of the team, not Derek. Now. It seemed Derek had let his power go unchecked. Without a second thought, Sundar got up and dialed. His assistant, "Reschedule everything today," he said quietly. "Everything?" She asked, surprised. "Yes, I need to go to Phoenix, right now." Within an hour, Sundar was on a private jet flying towards the Arizona sun, wondering what kind of man Liam Ortiz really was and what kind of monster Derek Slate had become. The next morning, Liam sat alone on the park bench across from Next Step Robotics. He hadn't told his mother yet. She would cry again. He had promised her after the accident that he would be okay. And for a while, he was. Losing his arm in a car crash at 19 was the hardest thing he'd ever been through. But worse than the pain was the way people looked at him after. Like he was broken. Like he didn't belong, but he had worked hard, studied late, practiced. With one hand what others took for granted with two. He'd become a systems analyst, joined Next Step as a junior developer, and slowly earned his spot. He never asked for special treatment. He only wanted a chance. And he had it until Derek called him into his office and said, "Liam, this isn't working out. Your output is lower than the others. We need people who can move fast. You understand?" He remembered nodding, biting the inside of his cheek to stop from shaking. He didn't want to give Derek the satisfaction of seeing him cry. Now, he stared at the building that had once felt like a future and now felt like a slap in the face. He didn't expect anything to come from the email. He had just needed to say it to someone, and Sundar Pichai, the man was a tech giant. Why would he care about a nobody like him? The Next Step lobby was quiet when Sundar walked in. No entourage, no suit. Just jeans, a soft gray shirt, and a focused stare. The receptionist didn't recognize him. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Yes," Sundar said calmly. "I'm here to see Derek Slate. Do you have an appointment?" "No, then I'm afraid. Tell him Sundar Pichai is here." The receptionist blinked. Then her eyes widened. She picked up the phone with shaky hands. Within seconds, Derek came rushing down the corridor, face pale, smile forced. Mr. Pichai. He said, trying to sound cheerful. What a surprise. I wasn't told you were visiting. That's because I didn't tell anyone, Sundar said, his voice calm but laced with weight. Can we talk? Of course. Come into my office. They walked into a sleek, glass-walled room overlooking the city. Derek offered him a drink. Sundar declined. I won't take much of your time, Sundar said. I came about Liam Ortiz. Derek's smile faltered for a second. Yes. Unfortunate situation. Was it? Sundar asked, eyes steady. He said he was let go because he was too slow. Because he has one arm. Mr. Pichai, I assure. We've been fair. We have performance metrics. We can't make exceptions. Business is competitive. And humanity? Sundar asked softly. Derek shifted in his chair. We can't risk falling behind. We have deadlines, expectations. If we start adjusting for everyone's personal circumstances, he's not asking for sympathy, Sundar interrupted. He was performing, he was loyal. What message do you send to your team when you punish resilience? With respect, Mr. Pichai, Derek said, his tone getting sharper. You're not involved in our day-to-day operations. You're... Right, Sundar said. Then he stood up slowly. But I am involved in who we support, and today I saw enough. Are you threatening to pull your backing? No, Sundar replied, his voice calm. I'm promising it. He walked to the door, then paused. Double quotes. Do you know what kind of world we're building, Derek? One where people like Liam don't give up, even when the world turns its back on. Then, I want to build that world. And you're not part of it anymore. Outside, Liam was still on the bench when a car pulled up beside him. The back window rolled down. He couldn't believe who he saw. Liam Ortiz. Sundar asked gently. Liam froze. Yes? Get in. We need to talk. As the car drove away, Liam's heart pounded. This couldn't be real. The man who had built one of the biggest tech empires was now sitting next to him, looking at him. Like he mattered. I read your email, Sundar said. Thank you for sending it. I didn't think you'd see it, Liam whispered. I was so tired. I know. Sundar turned to him. I want to hear your story. All of it. Later that evening, back at his hotel suite, Sundar sat with Liam, who was telling him about the accident, about the rehab, about the quiet nights when he wondered if anyone would ever hire someone like him. Sundar listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving Liam's face. When Liam finished, he wiped his eyes and said, I just wanted to work. That's all. I didn't need special treatment, just a fair chance. And you'll get it, Sundar said. From who? Liam asked, laughing bitterly. No one wants to hire someone who looks like me. Not really. Then we'll build something better. Sundar said, something that proves him wrong. Liam looked at him, unsure if he heard right. But before Sundar could say more, his phone buzzed. It was a message. From Derek. You made a mistake coming here. You don't know everything. Sundar stared at the message. Then a second one came. A whistleblower is about to expose something you missed. It's about Liam. He frowned. What was he talking about? And then the third message appeared. A secret that could ruin you both. Asterisk. The hotel room was quiet, but Sundar's mind was racing. He sat by the window again, phone in hand, eyes fixed on the 3 messages from Derek Slate. He didn't like games. He especially didn't like vague threats. Sundar had built his life on integrity and clarity. He wasn't afraid of shadows, but this one felt different. Liam had just stepped into the bathroom to wash his hands. The young man still looked nervous, as if everything happening around him was too surreal to believe. And maybe it was. How often does a tech billionaire invite a recently fired, disabled worker into a luxury suite just to listen to his story? But Sundar had seen something in Liam that most wouldn't. It wasn't just resilience, it was quiet strength, the kind that didn't demand attention but commanded respect. And now, with Derek's cryptic messages, Sundar couldn't help but wonder if there was something else, something Liam hadn't told him. The door opened softly. Liam walked back in, drying his hand on a towel. He looked better now, his eyes a little more hopeful, his posture a bit straighter. Thank you again, he said softly, for listening. For believing me? Sundar looked up and gave a calm nod. Liam, he said, choosing his words carefully. Has anyone ever tried to use your name or your story to get something out of the company? Liam furrowed his brows. What do you mean? Maybe someone tried to use your situation as a reason to file complaints. Or maybe someone inside the company was trying to use you to push another agenda. Liam sat down across from him. His eyes shifted, unsure. There was one thing, he said, voice low. A few weeks before I got fired, a guy from HR, Kyle, he told me something strange. He said that there were whispers about misused funds in the accessibility budget, that someone was trying to cover it up. He thought I should keep my head down. Said it wasn't safe to ask questions. Sundar leaned forward. Did you? Liam nodded. I didn't ask anything. I was just happy to have a job. And honestly, I was scared. I didn't want to be seen as a problem, Sundar frowned, tapping the arm of his chair slowly. The pieces were shifting in his mind. He thought. This was about an unjust firing. Now it looked like something deeper, something darker. Liam, he said slowly, what if this isn't just about you being fired unfairly? What if someone made you the fall guy to hide their own wrongdoing? Liam blinked. You think they use me to distract from something else? Sundar nodded. Double quotes, maybe comma, Liam said. But why would they target me? I was known to them. Because, Sundar replied, you were the perfect target. You wouldn't fight back. And your story would make headlines if it ever got out just enough. Noise to hide the real scandal. The next day, Sundar returned to the Next Step Robotics office, not through the front door, but through the underground parking lot. He had called a former Google ethics investigator named Neela, someone he trusted with his life. She met him in the dimly lit corner of the garage, her laptop bag slung across her shoulder. This place gives me corporate villain vibes already, she joked, breaking the tension. I need you to find out what Derek is hiding, Sundar said directly. Something about a whistleblower. Something that might involve accessibility fund misuse. And Liam's firing might have been a distraction. Neela's expression changed instantly. She opened her laptop on the hood of Sundar's car, tapping. Quickly, I'll dig into internal email trails, fund transfers, reimbursement requests. If someone forged data or covered up payments, I'll find it. And be careful, Sundar added. They know we're looking now. Neela smirked. Good, let them sweat. Liam, meanwhile, had gone home. It was a small apartment near downtown, filled with secondhand furniture and hand-me-down hope. His mother, Elena, had cooked rice and lentils. She looked at him with tired eyes that still held love. You were gone all night, she said gently. I was worried. Something happened, Liam said slowly. Someone listened to me, actually listened. Her eyes widened when he told her who it was. Sundar Pichai. The name alone made her gasp. Double quotes at my J.O. He's a giant. Why would he help you? I don't know, Liam whispered. But he said I deserve better. She reached for his hand, the one he still had. She squeezed it tightly. Then maybe the world is changing. Liam wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe he wasn't just a sympathy case. But part of him still doubted. Hours later, Sundar sat again in his hotel room, reviewing data Neela had just sent over. It was shocking. There were hidden invoices, huge sums, labeled accessibility. Upgrades, approved by Derek's executive assistant, but never implemented. In fact, some of the same items had been built twice, then redirected to a shell company under a different name. Neela had traced the ownership. It led back to Derek's cousin. He was laundering money, Neela said over the call, through fake equipment orders meant for disabled employees. And guess what? Right after Liam's firing, all public scrutiny shifted toward a social debate about discrimination, drawing attention away from the financials. Sundar stood up. Pacing the room, he used Liam's firing as smoke, Sundar muttered. Exactly, Neela said. And here's the bigger issue. The whistleblower isn't attacking Liam. They're trying to reach you because they think you backed this. What? They think your name was used to protect this fraud. Derek was bragging about how he had big tech support. They're linking you to his crimes. Sundar felt his heart tighten. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was global. If this got out without context, it wouldn't just tarnish his name. It would destroy trust. He picked up his phone and dialed Liam. Can you come back? Sundar asked. Yes. Right now? Yes, we have to clear your name. And mine. But more than that, we have to expose the truth. As night fell, Sundar and Liam sat together, facing the data on the screen. Liam stared at the invoices in disbelief. They used me, he whispered. To hide all of this. Yes, Sundar said. But now we use the truth to reveal it. Liam looked at him. What do we do? Sundar paused. We go to the press. Just as they were finalizing the file, there was a loud knock on the hotel room door. Both of them froze. Sundar got up slowly and opened the door. A young woman stood there, nervous and wide-eyed. Are you Sundar Pichai? Yes, I'm Kara. I used to work in Derek's office. I heard you're digging into something. I know things, but they're watching me. I need protection. Sundar stepped aside. Come in. Kara walked in, shaking slightly. Derek, he's dangerous. She whispered. He's not just stealing money. He's silencing people? What do you mean? Liam asked. Kara looked directly at him. The reason you were fired? It wasn't just because of the fraud. It was because of the file you accessed by mistake. They think you saw something you weren't supposed to. What file? Liam asked. Completely confused. Kara swallowed. You downloaded a report 3 weeks ago. A security audit. It had flagged the fake invoices. They traced the access back to your terminal. They panicked. You were a risk, so they got rid of you. Liam's hands trembled. He didn't even remember opening that file. It must have been an accident. They blamed me, he whispered. And now, Kara said quietly, they'll come. For all of us. The room went completely still. Outside, in the hallway, footsteps could be heard. Slow. Heavy, deliberate. Someone was coming. And whoever it was knew exactly where they were. Asterisk. The footsteps outside grew louder. Slow and deliberate, echoing in the quiet hallway like a warning bell. Sundar looked at Liam, then Kara, his expression calm but alert. They were sitting on the edge of something. Dangerous now? What had started as a personal act of kindness was unraveling into a web of lies, fraud, and hidden threats. Kara's eyes darted toward the door. They're watching all former employees, she whispered. I had to throw away my phone, drive across 2 counties, and walk 3 blocks to get here. I've seen what Derek does to people who talk. One engineer filed a complaint last year. He was suddenly accused of stealing code, lost his license. No one heard from him again. Sundar remained quiet, calculating. His instinct wasn't fear, it was protection. He knew how these power structures worked. Once people started digging into corruption, those in charge would do anything to stay hidden. Liam, he said calmly, did you lock the door? Yes. A soft knock came. It wasn't loud, just calculated. Kara's face went pale. Sundar walked to the door and pressed his hand gently against it, not opening. Who is it? Yes. No answer. Instead. A piece of paper was slid under the door. Sundar picked it up. On it were 5 words, written in black ink. Stop now. Or he's next. His eyes narrowed. He turned the paper over. Blank. Liam stood up. What does that mean? Kara sat down heavily. They know you're involved again, she whispered. You're the leak. At least they think you are. Liam's hands shook slightly. But I didn't leak anything. I didn't even know about this stuff until yesterday. They don't care, Kara said bitterly. They just want someone to blame. Neela called just minutes later. Her voice was tense. We've got a problem, she said. Go on. Sundar replied. Someone tried to wipe the internal servers at Next Step. A full wipe. But I backed up everything I could last night, and I found something else. What? The whistleblower is one of Derek's own board members. She tried to go public months ago. Her name's Dr. Renee Callahan. She flagged the invoices internally, then disappeared from the company website. Sundar felt his chest tighten. Disappeared. How? They say she resigned. But I found an encrypted file she uploaded before she left. It's fake. Sundar. It has everything: audio recordings, board meeting transcripts, even financial statements showing how Derek funneled investor money into personal shell companies. Why didn't she go public sooner? She tried, no one listened. And worse, someone leaked her medical records to the media, made her sound unstable, discredited everything she said. Sundar closed his eyes for a second. The pieces were connecting faster now. Can you find her? He asked. I'm trying. But she went completely off-grid 6 months ago. She's scared. And honestly, she has every reason to be. Later that night, Sundar sat alone in the corner of the suite, a dim lamp casting a soft glow over the room. Liam and Kara were asleep on the couch, exhausted. But Sundar couldn't sleep. He had spent his entire career fighting for innovation, but innovation without ethics meant nothing. What good were machines if they served a system that crushed the very people they were meant to help? His mind returned to Liam, how the young man had looked when they first met. Hesitant, defeated. Now, even amid fear, he was standing taller. That kind of courage couldn't be manufactured. And Sundar wouldn't let it be wasted. He opened his laptop and began typing. A plan was forming. Next morning, Sundar booked a press conference. He didn't tell anyone where. Just a location. A small, overlooked community tech center in Phoenix. The kind of place that didn't get cameras, headlines, or investors, but it had history. It had heart. As the room slowly filled with curious reporters, nonprofit workers, and local developers, Sundar stepped onto the small platform at the front. He didn't wear a suit. No tie. No flash. Just clarity in his voice. Good morning. He began, I'm here not to defend my name, but to protect the truth, and to stand beside those who've been silenced. The crowd leaned in. Last week, a young man named Liam. Ortiz sent me an email. A quiet plea from someone who believed he had been unfairly dismissed. His story uncovered something larger, an entire system of corruption buried inside companies supported by my foundation. Today, we're exposing that. Corruption. He paused. Asterisk. Not just for justice, but for accountability and change. Then he handed the mic to Liam. Asterisk. Liam stepped up slowly. His hand trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. I thought losing my arm was the worst thing that would ever happen to me, he said. But being made to feel like I didn't matter, that hurt more. He looked around the room. I worked hard, harder than most, and I was thrown away. Not because I couldn't do the job, but because someone else needed a distraction. I became their scapegoat. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras clicked. And Kara stepped forward. I worked inside Derek's office. I saw what was happening. People warned me to stay quiet, but I couldn't. Not after what they did to Liam. And not after what they did to Renee Callahan. Sundar stepped back to the mic. Dr. Callahan, if you're watching, he said directly into the lens, we believe you. And we're here if you want to tell your story. The crowd murmured. Across the city, in a small trailer home tucked behind an abandoned gas station. A woman watched the live stream on her cracked tablet. Dear Renee Callahan hadn't spoken to anyone in months. But now, for the first time, she cried, not because she was scared, but because someone had finally said her name with dignity. Back in the hotel, Sundar's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Derek. It was a blocked number. He answered. A soft voice spoke. Double quotes. Mr. Pichai. It's Renee. I'm ready to talk. Hours later, they met in a dim diner off the freeway. Renee looked tired. Worn down by fear, but still burning with quiet fire. They erased me, she said simply. They twisted everything. Made me feel crazy. And you're not, Sundar said gently. And you're not alone. She handed him a drive. This has it all. Every meeting. Every payment. Every lie. I kept it all. Because I knew one day someone might care. Sundar took it. His hand steady. We care now. But just as Renee stood to leave, her face went Pale Dot, she pointed out the window. Him, she whispered. Dot, a man in a black hoodie stood across the street, staring directly into the diner. Phone in hand. No expression. Liam looked to. Kara froze. That's one of Derek's guys, she said. He followed me here once before. Sundar stood slowly. But before he could move, the man turned and walked away. That night, as Sundar reviewed the files with Neela over video chat, a sick feeling crept in. Something in the data didn't make sense. One of the financial records showed a large transfer to a private medical research firm in Singapore. Why would Derek send money there? Sundar asked. Neela leaned closer. I don't know, but it wasn't company related. It was personal. She paused. And there's more. The timing matches the week before Liam's firing. Sundar's eyes narrowed. What are you thinking? She asked. I think Derek isn't just hiding fraud, he said slowly. He's hiding something bigger, something medical, something about Liam. Meanwhile, Liam sat on the hotel balcony, staring at the stars. Kara joined him quietly. You okay? She asked. He nodded. Just thinking. About what? About what they took from me. Not the job. Not even my reputation. But the feeling that I could trust the system. Kara was silent for a moment. Then she said, maybe it's time we stop trusting systems and start building better ones. Liam looked at her. You really think we can? With Sundar on our side? She smiled. I do. But inside, both of them knew it wasn't over yet, not even close. And neither of them could predict what was coming next, because the secret hidden in the Singapore files would change everything. Asterisk. The night felt heavier than usual. Sundar stood quietly at the window of his hotel suite, watching headlights snake down the streets below like slow-moving fireflies. Inside the room, Liam and Kara were quietly reviewing documents. But Sundar's thoughts were trapped in one file, that strange overseas wire transfer. A 6-figure payment sent from Derek's personal account to a private medical research facility in Singapore. No description. No invoice. Just a date 5 days before Liam was fired. Sundar couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was buried in that transaction, it had nothing to do with Next Step's corporate fraud. It felt personal. And it felt connected to Liam in a way no one yet understood. He called Neela again, his voice low. Can you get me a contact inside that research facility? Already on it, she replied. It's called Chalera Tech Labs. Private genetic research firm? Very hush-hush. But one of my classmates from ET works on data compliance there. I'm calling her now. Good. We need to know exactly what Derek paid them for. And Sundar, Neela paused, her voice uncertain. There's something you should know. In one of the emails Derek sent to his lawyer, he mentioned a phrase, Project Reset. He said the Singapore transfer was for phase 1 of Project Reset. That doesn't sound like a medical expense, Sundar murmured. It sounds like he's trying to erase something. The next morning, Neela called back. Her voice was tight with tension. I got the info, she said. But Sundar, you're not going to believe this. Go on. The payment wasn't for treatment. It was for access to a specific patient's genetic file. The file came from a United States hospital. They matched genetic markers from a tissue sample to a research database. And guess whose name was on the original medical file? Sundar already knew. Liam. Yes. How is that even possible? It gets worse. The tissue sample came from a hospital Liam stayed at after his accident. It seems Derek somehow got access to the hospital's internal system and flagged Liam's name. He requested genetic screening for specific neurological markers, the same markers linked to advanced motor function resilience. Sundar's face hardened. So he wasn't just firing Liam to cover up fraud. No, said. He was testing him, using him. Liam sat across from Sundar as he explained what Neela had found. At first, Liam didn't react. He just stared at the floor, his hand resting on the small scar near his wrist, the one he never talked about. So, I was an experiment. He finally said, Not exactly, Sundar replied. But Derek saw something in your recovery after the accident. Something unusual. Something valuable. And instead of telling you, he took your medical data and sold it. Liam's jaw clenched. He made money off my pain. Kara stepped forward, furious. That's why he always watched you. That's why he never promoted you, never praised you. You were just data to him? Sundar nodded. But now we know. And now we make him answer for it. That evening, Sundar made a decision. They weren't going to wait anymore. They weren't going to stay hidden. It was time to confront Derek. Face to face, this time not in private, but in front of his own board. He called in favors, contacted allies, arranged an emergency meeting at Next Step's headquarters, citing serious ethical concerns. Since Sundar's foundation was still listed as a major incubator partner, the board had no choice but to agree. By noon the next day, Sundar, Liam, Kara, and Neela stood in front of a long oak table surrounded by sharply dressed executives, investors, and Derek himself. Derek walked in late, confident and smirking, his expensive suit gleaming under the recessed lights. "Mr. Pichai," he said casually. "What an unexpected reunion." Sundar didn't smile. "We're here to discuss your company's ethical violations." Derek laughed. "What violations?" "This sounds like a public stunt." Neela stepped forward, handing out printed reports. "These are copies of fraudulent financial transactions," she said coldly. "Signed by your assistant, funneled to shell accounts, and linked back to your cousin's offshore firms." The boardroom buzzed with whispers. Derek's smile faded. "And these," Sundar continued, pulling out a second folder, "are medical. Reports showing you accessed and sold the genetic data of one of your employees without his knowledge or consent." Gasps spread across the room. Derek tried to speak, but Sundar raised a hand. "You not only exploited a disabled employee," he said, his voice sharp, "but you used his body, his trauma, as a tool for profit. You crossed a line no professional should ever even approach." "This is outrageous," Derek snapped. "You have no proof." "We have the files," Neela interrupted. "We have witnesses, and we have the original hospital breach logs traced to your login credentials." The room went silent. Derek's face flushed and paled. A board member leaned forward. "Is this true?" Derek didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Liam. "You don't understand what you are," he said. "You're not just some employee. You're a breakthrough. Your brain adapted faster than most. You recovered movement, balance, even reflexes doctors thought you'd never type again. But you did, don't you see? You're special." "I'm human," Liam said, his voice firm. "That's all I ever wanted to be treated as." Kara stepped forward, and he used every part of that humanity. Without permission, without care. Sundar faced the board. "You can keep him and lose every investor you have. Or you can remove him and rebuild something honest." The vote didn't take long. Unanimous. Derek was fired on the spot, but he didn't leave quietly. "You think this ends me?" He spat. "I built this company. You'll fall without me. And you," he turned to Liam, "you'll regret this. You have no idea what you just did." Security arrived. Derek was escorted out. But just as the door shut behind him, Liam collapsed. The room turned to chaos. Sundar rushed to his side. "Liam!" He was conscious but breathing heavily, gripping his left shoulder, the one that had always ached since the accident. "My chest." "Something's wrong," he whispered. Paramedics were called immediately. Within minutes, they were racing toward the nearest hospital. Sundar rode with him, holding his hand. "You're going to be okay," he kept saying. "Just breathe." But deep down, he wasn't sure. Hours later, in the sterile light of the hospital, a doctor walked in with a clipboard. Her expression was serious. "We ran a full scan," she said, "and we found something." Sundar stood up. Kara joined him, eyes wide. "What is it?" Sundar asked. The doctor took a breath. "There's a foreign implant lodged near the nerve cluster of his spine. Very small. Probably placed during one of his post-accident surgeries. It's not listed in any of his official hospital records." "An implant?" Kara echoed. "Yes," the doctor said. "And it's transmitting." Sundar froze. "What?" "It's sending out a low-frequency signal. Encrypted. It's not harmful by itself, but it's monitoring neurological activity. Liam sat up weakly. Are you saying they've been tracking my brain? Yes, the doctor said softly. For years. Sundar turned away, rage bubbling quietly inside him. This wasn't just fraud. This wasn't just unethical. This was human experimentation. And it had been done under everyone's noses. Liam's life, his pain, his triumphs, even his recovery had been studied like a science project. All while he was trying to survive. Later that night, Sundar sat alone again, typing furiously on his laptop. He was drafting something bigger than a press release. It was a declaration, a call to reform data rights and digital ethics, not just for the tech industry, but for all companies handling human lives. He titled it simply, The Liam Principle. No one should ever be treated like data. He wrote, we are not products. We are people. And our pain is not a business model. But as he typed, his phone rang again. A voice on the other end said only 4 words. You found the device. Sundar paused. Who is this? Doesn't matter. Just know this. If you keep going, you'll uncover something worse than you can imagine. What could be worse than exploiting a disabled man's trauma? Sundar asked. The voice chuckled. Try the next 5 people on the list. Click. The call ended. And Sundar realized ... Liam wasn't the only one. Asterisk, the silence after the phone call was haunting. Sundar sat in the dark, his laptop screen still glowing faintly in front of him. The voice had been cold, controlled like someone speaking from a distance, not just in miles, but in conscience. You found the device. Try the next 5 people. On the list, the words echoed in his ears, not just a threat. A confession, but what list? Who else had been targeted like Liam? Who else was being tracked, monitored, studied like some living science project? Sundar's chest tightened, not with fear, but with urgency. This had gone far beyond a single unethical CEO. Derek may have been the face, the hand that signed the papers, but he wasn't the architect of this hidden machinery. There was something larger at play, and now Sundar knew. Liam wasn't the only victim. The next morning, Sundar met Neela in person. She had flown down overnight, carrying a flash drive full of encrypted files, pulled from the servers they'd saved before Derek's wipe attempt. They sat across a small table in a cafe tucked away in Phoenix. Far from corporate buildings and media vans, Neela plugged in the drive and opened a folder titled Project Reset, Confidential. Inside were 6 names, 6 files, 6 lives. Liam's file is the first, she whispered. But look, there are 5 more. Sundar leaned in. Each file had a unique ID, a short profile, and something deeply unsettling. Neurological and physiological data collected over time. Some entries had over 200 logs. Others included images, even audio snippets. How did Derek get this data? Sundar asked, though part of him already knew. Some of them had surgeries, Neela said softly. Others were part of rehabilitation programs sponsored by Next Step or its partners. It looks like Derek and whoever helped him slipped experimental devices into their treatments without consent. Sundar asked, voice tense. Double quotes, yes. Overlay tracking. Neuroplasticity. Behavioral response to trauma. Resilience under isolation. Essentially, human adaptability under stress. Sundar looked away, his jaw tightening. They weren't helping these people, he muttered. They were testing how much pain they could survive. That afternoon, Sundar and Neela visited one of the names on the list, a woman named Jade Harrison. She was a single mother who had lost a leg in a boating accident 4 years ago. She now worked in a small bookstore in Tempe. Jade welcomed them. With cautious curiosity, she'd never heard of Derek Slate. But when Neela showed her a copy of her medical recovery records, her hands began to shake. This was never shown to me, she whispered. Why are there notes about extreme emotional withdrawal? Who wrote this? Your implant, Neela said gently, was recording your emotional responses. They used your recovery, your Pain as a data experiment. Jade's eyes welled with tears. I thought it was just me, she said, voice cracking. I thought I was broken. Sundar reached out and gently took her hand. You were never broken, he said. You were being used. Over the next 48 hours, Sundar and his team met 3 more individuals. One was a former soldier named Marcus, whose spinal implant had helped him walk again, but at the cost of constant headaches and nightmares that doctors couldn't explain. Another was a teenager named Emily, who had recovered from a traumatic brain injury but struggled with sudden mood shifts. Her parents had always thought it was part of the recovery. Now they weren't sure. The last was a man named Joseph who had completely disappeared from the system. His file ended abruptly 2 years ago. Sundar feared the worst. Each story added more fuel to Sundar's fire. This wasn't just unethical. This was criminal. But there was something else growing inside him, something heavier. Guilt, because his name, his foundation, had once stood beside Next Step. And even if he hadn't known the details, he had helped build the ladder Derek climbed. And now, that ladder had blood on its rungs. At the hospital, Liam was recovering slowly. The implant near his spine had been carefully removed. The doctors were still studying its long-term effects. He was tired, pale, but awake and stronger than Sundar had ever seen him. Tara sat beside him every day, reading news articles aloud. The press was catching on. Sundar's public statement had gone viral. People were talking about the Liam principle, about data rights, about ethics in tech, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Liam wanted justice, not just for himself, but for everyone. Like him. And Sundar knew what had to come next. 3 days later, Sundar organized a global press conference. Not in a flashy auditorium or inside a corporate headquarters. He chose an open courtyard outside the Phoenix Community Hospital. Behind him stood a line of people: Liam, Jade, Marcus, Emily's parents. Survivors. The world watched. When technology and compassion walk side by side. Sundar began. We make progress. But when technology walks ahead alone, people get trampled. He took a breath, steady and full. For years, a hidden project used human pain as a testing ground. People were monitored, manipulated, and studied without consent. Today we reveal it, and we demand accountability. He stepped aside. Liam walked to the microphone. He wore a simple shirt. No script, just truth in his eyes. I thought I was just unlucky, he said. I thought I was broken. Now I know. I was targeted. But today I stand here not as a victim, but as a voice, not just for myself, but for everyone who was ever made to feel small, ignored, or invisible. The crowd erupted in applause. Then Sundar spoke again. We are officially launching a global task force made of engineers, ethicists, survivors, and legal experts. We will audit every company linked to Project Reset, and we will bring charges. This ends now. As the press scattered, one camera caught a quiet moment. Sundar and Liam standing shoulder to shoulder. You did it, Sundar said softly. Liam shook his head. We're just getting started. That night, back in the hotel, a package was delivered to Sundar's room. No name, no return address. Inside was a small black box. When he opened it, he found a USB drive. He plugged it into a private laptop and played the only file it contained. Video began. Grainy. Time-stamped 2 years ago. Derek sat in a dark room, speaking to someone off camera. We've identified 6 primary subjects, he said, but I want to expand. If this works, we could control recovery, design it, predict it, even sell it. Imagine being able to promise miracle recoveries if they pay. The camera shifted slightly. And for the first time, Sundar saw the man sitting across from Derek. He wasn't from Next Step. He was from a powerful government research division. The logo behind him said Special Neural Development Agency. You help us, the man said, and we'll protect your project. Sundar stared in disbelief. This wasn't just corporate corruption. This was systemic. And it reached into places far darker than he had ever imagined. Asterisk, the hotel room felt colder now. Sundar stared at the paused video. The image burned into his mind. The logo of the Special Neural Development Agency. The face of the man seated across from Derek. And the quiet calm in Derek's voice as he spoke about selling human recovery like a product. The words were played like a haunting melody. Imagine being able to promise miracle recoveries. If they pay, Sundar had seen a lot in his life. He had witnessed the rise of technologies that connected the world, the fall of companies built on lies, the slow evolution of humanity's relationship with machines. But this was different. This wasn't about money. It was about control over the most fragile, sacred part of the human spirit, resilience, asterisk. He stood slowly, walked over to the window, and looked out at the early morning sky. The world outside had no idea how close it had come to losing something priceless. Trust, autonomy, dignity. If the agency's plan had continued unnoticed, millions could have been enrolled into secret experiments under the name of recovery, rehabilitation, or enhancement, all without knowing they were part of a system that saw them not as people, but as potential products. Stopped behind him, the hotel. Door opened. Liam stepped inside quietly, his arm still in a sling, his face pale but determined. Kara followed, carrying 2 coffees and a bag of breakfast rolls. "You're up early," Liam said softly. "Couldn't sleep?" Sundar replied. Kara sat down and handed Liam a coffee. Then she noticed the paused video on the laptop screen. "Who is that?" she asked. "Government," Sundar answered. They were backing Derek. Liam leaned forward, stunned. "You're saying this wasn't just Derek's doing?" "No," Sundar said quietly. "Derek was the executioner. But someone else wrote the sentence." Kara whispered, "What are we going to do?" Sundar turned around slowly, his voice calm, but his eyes sharper than ever. "We tell the truth. All of it, even if it shakes the system." By noon, Sundar was on the phone with his legal team, privacy, experts, and trusted journalists. He was taking a risk, maybe the biggest one of his life. Calling out a hidden government agency could end in threats, lawsuits, even erasure. But he had built his life on transparency, and he wouldn't abandon it now. NEELA joined them later that afternoon, bringing legal documents and encrypted backups. "We need to make the disclosure bulletproof," she said. "Multiple backups, legal witnesses, and real-time release strategies. If we get silenced, the files go public anyway." "Done," Sundar said. "And make sure the victim stories come first. This isn't about headlines, it's about people." The next morning, Sundar and Liam stood together in a small auditorium packed with reporters. Survivors and families. There was no stage. No fanfare. Just 2 microphones, 1 camera, and a room full of truth. "Today," Sundar began, "we finish what we started." He explained everything. The implants, the experiments, the fraud, and finally the involvement of a government agency that had quietly supported Derek's research under the radar, disguising it as rehabilitation innovation. Then he turned to Liam. Liam took a slow breath and stepped up. "I was one of the first," he said, voice steady. "They put something inside my body without telling me. They watched me recover, fall, cry, rebuild, all while taking notes. They measured my pain like it was a product." The room went silent. "And now I'm asking everyone listening to fight for those who don't know they're being used. Because I didn't know. Not until it was almost too late." He paused, eyes welling with emotion. "I was never broken. I was human, and they forgot that." When he stepped back, the room rose to its feet, not with applause. With silence. The kind of silence that comes from shared truth. The kind that echoes longer than clapping ever could. Within hours, the story broke worldwide. The Liam principle trended on every platform. Governments issued emergency statements. Civil rights groups began investigations. And under growing pressure, the Special Neural Development Agency released a short press release, denying wrongdoing before being formally suspended by independent oversight. Derek Slate, now under arrest, refused to speak to the press. But leaked prison records showed he had requested isolation. fearing retaliation from other inmates. Meanwhile, Jade, Marcus, Emily's parents, and others were flown to Washington to testify before a special commission on medical ethics and technological abuse. They didn't go alone. Liam was with them. So was Sundar. Weeks later, Sundar stood outside a small, newly built center in Arizona. It was called the Resilience Lab, funded by his foundation and co-led by survivors like Liam and Jade. It offered free treatment for those affected by unauthorized implants, trauma recovery, and training in ethical tech practices for engineers. Liam walked out of the building with a clipboard in one hand and a huge smile on his face. "We've got our first group of students today," he said proudly. "You ready to teach?" Sundar asked, more than ever. Kara joined them, smiling. She had just been hired to lead media outreach for the lab, using her experience to protect others from what she had once been part of. Together, the three of them stood at the entrance of something new, not just a building, but a movement. A declaration. But the story didn't end with headlines. One night, Sundar sat alone on a bench outside the lab, watching the stars. Liam sat beside him quietly. "You okay?" Sundar asked. "I keep thinking," Liam said softly, "about what Derek said before they took him away." "Which part?" He said, "You have no idea what you just did." Sundar looked at him. "He was wrong," he said. "We knew exactly what we were doing. We told the truth, and we helped others do the same." Liam nodded. But deep in his heart, he also knew there were still more Dereks out there, still more hidden labs, still more people being studied without knowing. And that's why they couldn't stop. A year later, the Liam principle was adopted globally by tech firms, requiring all medical devices and recovery tech to include full transparency, ethical review boards, and informed consent. Schools began teaching digital ethics from elementary levels. Recovery centers across the country implemented survivor-led training, and Sundar, now recognized not just as a leader in technology, but as a champion of ethical innovation, quietly stepped back from daily operations to focus on building safe, human-first systems. He never sought credit, because the story wasn't about him. It was about Liam. About Jade. About Marcus, Emily, and Joseph. About every person who ever suffered in silence, and about what can happen when one man chooses not to look away. Asterisk.